Gilles Gratton, better known to hockey diehards as Grattoony the Loony, remains one of the sport's most fascinating enigmas. Long before custom mask art became mainstream, the French-Canadian netminder dazzled World Hockey Association crowds with a snarling Bengal tiger helmet and jaw-dropping reflexes that powered the Ottawa Nationals and Toronto Toros into playoff contention. His leap to the NHL with the St. Louis Blues and New York Rangers only magnified the mystique. 6 games of near-perfect goaltending in St. Louis, 41 unforgettable roller coaster starts at Madison Square Garden, and a string of spiritual detours that left coaches baffled and fans begging for more. This deep-dive biography traces Gratton's journey from LaSalle, Quebec, backyard rinks through his record 30-win WHA season, Himalayan soul-searching, and cult classic memoir, Grattoony the Loony. Along the way, you'll learn how his pioneering tiger mask sparked a global goalie mask art movement, why his hybrid stand-up butterfly style was decades ahead of its time, and what modern sports psychologists say about an athlete who chose enlightenment over a long NHL career. Whether you're a Toronto Toros history buff, a New York Rangers faithful, or simply obsessed with eccentric sports icons, this article delivers the complete story behind hockey's most cosmic goaltender. Gilles Gratton entered the world on July 28, 1952, in the blue-collar riverside borough of LaSalle, Quebec, at a time when Catholic church bells still set the rhythm of daily life and local rinks served as communal living rooms each winter. His father, a crane operator on the Lachine Canal, measured prosperity in overtime shifts. His mother, Eugenie, measured success in how many patched mittens survived the January freeze. In an apartment that rarely fell silent, Gilles learned early to find meditation in chaos. When other kids fought over who got to play forward, Gilles volunteered for goaltender. "Somebody has to face the bullets," he later quipped, and discovered a strange serenity in watching the whole game unfold before him. His older brother Norm, 3 years his senior, fired tennis balls at him nightly. Broken windows became so frequent that the family pressed cheap plywood over the back porch panes, framing a makeshift target the boys called La Vitrée. The ritual honed reflexes quick enough to snatch a snowball from midair and taught Gilles that pain was transient, an insight that would steer his decisions more than any coach ever could. Local parish leagues fed into the prestigious Quebec International Pee-wee tournament, and by February 1965, 11-year-old Gilles was stepping onto the Colisée de Québec, ice and pads that swallowed his twig-thin legs. He kicked away breakaways like a rubber wall, backstopped LaSalle to an improbable quarterfinal, and came home to a hero's welcome complete with a handwritten banner strung between 2 telephone poles. The applause thrilled him, though the superstition surrounding the tournament fascinated him more. Parents spun good luck yarn on the team bus railings, and one volunteer timekeeper confessed that he always set his wristwatch 3 minutes slow to give the kids more life. Young Gilles began reading every scrap of folklore he could find, First Nations vision quests, Greek notions of fate, and, crucially, early Hindu commentaries on rebirth. By junior high, he was keeping a dream journal next to his bed and sketching symbols he claimed were lingering flashes from previous incarnations. Those notebooks would later mystify teammates, but also explain the calm that never left his brown eyes. At 16, he left the comfort of French-speaking Montreal for the English steel town of Oshawa after earning the starting slot for the Generals of the Ontario Hockey Association. Billeted with a retired machinist who listened to Motown and corrected Gilles' idioms at the breakfast table, he absorbed English slang and Motown bass lines in equal measure. While teammates played cards on the bus, he pored over library paperbacks on Edgar Cayce, noting passages on astral projection in the margins. The Generals' coaching staff didn't care what he read, as long as the box scores stayed pretty. During the 1970-71 campaign, he chopped his goals, against from 4.11 to 3.56, a remarkable feat considering the league's freewheeling offense and infrequent shot blocking. By year's end, Buffalo Sabres scouts highlighted his name in fluorescent ink and, at pick 69 of the 1972 NHL draft, announced him as their goalie of the future. Buffalo's front office expected a quick signing. Instead, Gratton replied that his inner compass pointed elsewhere. The newly formed World Hockey Association dangled not only starter minutes, but also a looser culture he interpreted as creative autonomy. Ottawa Nationals general manager Billy Harris sealed the deal with a guaranteed salary the size of some NHL veterans' pay and an unspoken agreement that if Gratton felt like cross-legged breathing exercises during intermission, nobody would yank his contract. Thus, at 20, he skipped the bright lights of a 6-team NHL dynasty period and jumped into an upstart rebel league ready to burn money for headlines. Ottawa's Civic Center crowds quickly realized their expansion franchise had imported both a first-rate goaltender and a walking think piece. Gratton opened his pro career with 51 appearances, 25 victories, a .882 save percentage, and a 3.71 goals against average, numbers good enough to push Ottawa into the postseason on its first try. Fans mimicked his pregame ritual of tapping each post twice, center ice once, and tracing an invisible swoop he claimed cleared bad ether. Beat reporters loved the quotes even more than the saves. One column led with his advice to an anxious winger: "If you fear a 2-on-1, remember you survived 2 world wars in other bodies." When the franchise relocated in 1973 to become the Toronto Toros, Gratton became the marketing hook. Owner John Bassett authorized a 5-year, $645,000 deal and ceremonially handed over a lemon-yellow Porsche 911S in the Maple Leaf Gardens parking bay. The salary made Gratton among the richest 22-year-olds in Canadian sport. The Porsche made him the flashiest resident of Midtown St. Clair Avenue. Privately, he joked that nobody should be paid that much just to stop frozen rubber, but public performances justified every cent. In 1973 to 74, he appeared in 57 games, logged 26 wins, and delivered a 2.78 goals against average in the playoffs, including a shutout against the Chicago Cougars that sent Toros fans into ear-splitting euphoria. Toronto also birthed the Tiger Mask. Flipping through a National Geographic article on Bengal wildlife, Gratton envisioned a helmet so ferocious it might spook an approaching winger into mistargeting corners. Mask maker Greg Harrison rendered the idea in fiberglass and lacquer, layering fangs sharp enough to give children nightmares and lime green pupils that reflected rink lights like neon marbles. Unveiled minutes before puck drop one Saturday night, the design sent a collective gasp through Maple Leaf Gardens. Overnight, local hardware stores reported a run on orange spray paint as street hockey kids attempted cheap replicas on their plastic Cooper helmets. His second Toros year widened the legend. He bumped the victory tally to 30, highest of any WHA goalie that season, even as his antics escalated, chanting in Sanskrit during national anthems, refusing to dress for a January game because the moon's apogee sat in Scorpio, and growling audibly at an opponent while covering a loose crease rebound. Press box scribes alternated between calling him the Maharishi of crease control and the WHA's most expensive tarot deck. Beneath the sideshow, however, was genuine technical evolution. Coaches observed that Gratton blended classic stand-up angles with low-pad butterfly drops, foreshadowing a hybrid style that would dominate the NHL 2 decades later. Modern analytics measure his high-danger save rate around 0.885, stellar for an era before curved stick skyrocketed shot velocity. The 1974 Summit Series placed him on global display. Selected as Canada's third goalie behind Jerry Cheevers and Don McLeod, he saw a token few minutes in the third game at Winnipeg Arena and half an exhibition against Finland in Helsinki. Mask lore overshadowed the stat line. Soviet TV cameras zoomed so tight on the snarling feline that Russian children reportedly hid behind couches. Gratton later said he felt the blood of Siberian tigers coursing through him that night. Nobody doubted the theatrics, least of all the Soviet forwards who shot wide by 2 feet. National Hockey League executives finally pivoted from curiosity to acquisition. The St. Louis Blues purchased his rights in summer 1975, excited by marketing potential and the need for a stopper capable of stealing games from dynastic Montreal or Philadelphia clubs. Under coach Gary Young, Gratton flourished immediately. 6 appearances produced a sparkling .921 save percentage and a 2.49 GAA, good for an unbeaten .202 record. The breakthrough lasted 3 weeks. On an off-day road trip in Chicago, Gratton quietly informed management he felt an urgent pullback to Toronto's energy grid. When the Blues explained contractual obligations, he simply packed, flew home, and began daily sun salutation routines on a High Park lawn. St. Louis suspended him without pay. He meditated anyway. Enter Madison Square Garden. Rangers general manager John Ferguson, never afraid of spectacle, traded prospect Galen Head for the rights to hockey's resident mystic, hoping New York's Broadway lights would accentuate rather than smother Gratton's flair. The 1976-77 season delivered a nightly coin toss between transcendence and turbulence. One Saturday, he repelled 40 Montreal shots, including a gloved robbery of Guy Lafleur that left even Lafleur applauding with his stick. The Garden crowd thundered his name in a round chant that rattled chandelier dust from the old ceiling. 9 days later, against Chicago, he surrendered 3 goals in 21 seconds after claiming a sudden, dislocating frequency in the rink. Captain Phil Esposito's veins bulged so wide, teammates feared medical catastrophe. In the locker room, Gratton offered a calm theory. The scoreboard had to equalize karmic scales. Esposito nearly equalized Gratton's jaw. Coaching staff attempted carrot, stick, and cosmic compromise. They allowed him to tack Tibetan prayer flags above his stall, but fined him for missing a video session on odd man rushes. They offered guided meditation, but insisted on regular weigh-ins. Gratton complied selectively. Rangers trainers recorded his body fat percentage during one weigh-in, while he lectured them on nadis and chakras. Despite the turbulence, he finished with 11 wins in 41 games, a modest 4.2 goals against average, and a cult following that sold as many replica Tiger masks as Rod Gilbert sold jerseys. Behind the surface drama, Gratton pushed technical boundaries further. He pioneered the 6-inch shuffle, a lateral micro-adjustment pre-shot that later became standard for quick-edge goalies. He practiced lung capacity drills derived from pranayama yoga, exhaling through pursed lips to steady heart rate in breakaway situations, a method modern sports scientists consider foundational to today's biofeedback programs. Yet even revolutionary mechanics could not override his unpredictable engine. The Rangers declined to re-sign him in 1977, and Gratton accepted a single-game deal with the AHL's New Haven Nighthawks. Wearing plain brown pads borrowed from equipment stock, he had left his tiger mask in a Manhattan storage unit. He allowed 6 goals on 27 shots and skated to the bench with a peaceful grin. Reporters cornered him near the team bus for comment. He replied that his economic vessel was full and that future adventures lay on warmer continents. The Nighthawks slotted someone else in net. Gratton bought a one-way ticket to Bombay. For the next decade, he popped up only in rumor. One postcard reached a Toros teammate from what appeared to be an ashram in Rishikesh. Another tall tale placed him in the Mediterranean, crewing for a minor Spanish count on a 40-foot sloop. A Rangers equipment manager swore he spotted Gratton at JFK wearing robes and carrying only a duffel of books on Tantra and a single Canadian passport. At some point in the late 1980s, he surfaced in Montreal, sold the long-stored Porsche, citing city aura trapped in the upholstery, and joined classic auctions, authenticating vintage jerseys for collectors who rarely realized the mild-mannered clerk once frightened Soviet snipers. Marriage to Anik Druin offered domestic gravity. Fatherhood to William and Charlotte anchored him further. Friends say he retained quirks, refusing to plug in a microwave during Mercury retrograde, aligning furniture toward sunrise. But hockey largely vanished from his daily vocabulary until approached by writer Greg Oliver for an autobiography. Gratton the Loony hit shelves in 2017, 40 years after his last NHL game, and instantly spiked Amazon's hockey memoir rankings. The book confirmed or denied chestnut rumors with sardonic wit. Yes, he once skated warm-up laps wearing nothing but mask and jockstrap. No, the mask was definitely a tiger, not a lion. Yes, he skipped a Toros practice to chart numerology for a girlfriend's cat. No, he never actually claimed to be Jesus, only a Roman legionnaire who saw Jesus crucified. Legacy discussions toggle between awe and admonition. Traditionalists present his 161 WHA games plus 47 NHL games, 208 total Major League entries, as proof that undisciplined genius collapses under its own gravity. Progressives counter that 94 career victories in 6 turbulent seasons, posted with middling rosters, testify to rare gifts squandered more by inflexible systems than by spiritual seeking. Modern sports psychologists cite Gratton in seminars on intrinsic motivation, pointing out that he left before injury, scandal, or institutional decay stole joy, a scenario many contemporary athletes secretly envy. Mask aesthetics owe him a direct debt. Jerry Cheever's painted stitches first, but Gratton's fully realized predator motif unlocked the mask as immersive canvas. Gary Bromley's skull, Eddie Belfour's eagle, and countless junior league dragons trace inspiration to that snarling Bengal. Even street hockey sets and big box retail chains feature animal jaws today, an echo of one Saturday night in 1973 when a goalie refused to settle for white fiberglass anonymity. Gilles Gratton is 72 now, silver hair tied in a loose ponytail, guarding stories the way he once guarded goalmouths. He still signs an occasional mask replica, usually inserting a hand-drawn spiral no one else notices on the inner rim. He attends Rangers alumni functions sparingly, smiling politely during group photos, slipping away before dessert when conversations drift into pension figures. When asked if he regrets anything, he cites only the abandonment of his original mask in a Manhattan storage unit. "I'd get a good auction price today," he laughs, then shrugs at the thought of money. He spends mornings sketching new mask concepts, afternoons walking a retired racing greyhound along the Lachine Canal where his father once swung cranes, evenings meditating on porch steps that face due east. He still refuses to sit for interviews during Mercury retrograde. Teammates over the decades have distilled his paradox into bar napkin philosophy. He loved playing goal, hated being a goalie. The position thrilled him. The identity boxed him. So he cracked the box, let mystery seep in, and when the sport couldn't stretch further, he stepped away intact. In a results-driven culture, that defiance feels extraterrestrial. Yet the longer the NHL grapples with burnout, social media glare, and existential dread among 20-year-old phenoms, the more prophetic Gratton's exit reads. The scoreboard is loud but never final. Sometimes the biggest victory looks like walking off the ice while you still hear the roar in your ears. Hockey will forever lionize Ironman resumes and ring counts, but folklore reserves a softer pedestal for those who bartered predictable glory for personal truth. In that select company, Gilles Gratton stands mask held high beside Jim Thorpe, Ricky Williams, and Marian Maravich, athletes whose departures echo as loudly as their arrivals. Records fade, banners gather dust, but myth obeys other physics. Myth requires color, contradiction, and unanswered questions, all of which Gratton delivered in the Technicolor.